Hello and welcome back, guys. This is Ibrahim Quraishi here, and welcome back to Module 3. This is a brand new module. We are going to cover a lot of new interesting topics, starting off with virtual machine, templates, clones. So this is session 1 of Module 3. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Ibrahim Quraishi. My Twitter handle is @Ibrahim Quraishi, as it says over here. And my blog is agileops.co.uk. I have been a vExpert last year and I'm a vExpert this year as well. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and like my videos so that you can get new updates from me. So let's get started. So course content, obviously this has been already discussed. We have completed module 1 and module 2, and today we are going to be looking into module 3, which is virtual machine templates and clones. So we are basically going to see how to create virtual machine. This is going to be our first virtual machine which we are going to create. Well, not exactly. We have created virtual machines for building ESX host in the session before, and we have deployed our appliance as well, in a sense, because we deployed the appliance for vCenter server. But today we are going to look into how to create a brand new virtual machine, which we'll be doing in this session today, and hopefully we will try and do a demo around it as well. Then in the next session we'll be looking at templates and how to create templates. Then finally we'll be looking at clones. Okay, so what is a virtual machine? Understand what the virtual machine is. This is going to be the agenda for this session today. Files that create when you spin up a virtual machine. So it's very important to understand what exactly happens under the hood, because if you are preparing for your foundation exam, that could be one of your question, like what is the file for so and so, like what is the file created for memory, what is the config file called, and so on. So be sure to focus on all the topics which I'm going through if you're genuinely interested in going for a certification, or even if you're just using this to upskill yourself as a virtualization admin. And then we'll look at how to remove and register a virtual machine, which is also important to know if you accidentally remove it, but not delete it, because as it says at the end here, so what happens if you um, delete a virtual machine? So that's interesting to see. There is a difference between remove and delete, and you need to be very careful about it. And this is why I have added all these topics in what is a virtual machine, although it's just going a little bit out of the topic for today, but I want you guys to be sure of this. Okay, so virtual machine VM on the ESX host is just a software. It is a collection of files. So in general, what happens is ESX is a Linux based machine, software which runs on the bare metal. So when you create a virtual machine and you power it on, the creating virtual machine is basically creating a file on a Linux based machine, which is the ESX host. When you power it on, it basically runs as a process, so it runs as a software on the ESX host. Does it make sense? Yeah, so that is why it is called a virtual machine. It's not a physical one. The hypervisor, the ESX which we have, is emulating everything, which make the OS thinks that it is actually running on a physical machine, although it is running on, because it is emulating, the ESX is emulating a virtual machine for the guest OS. It basically the emulator makes it understand that, and it talks to the resources, which is CPU, memory, disk, network adapters. It has got its own virtual hardware, like how we have physical hardware. Over here you'll be having a virtual hardware. There are different versions of virtual hardware. They basically depend on the ESX version you're running in your environment. So for version 11, obviously for previous versions of ESX you had 11, 12, 13 and 14 and so on. So we can have a quick look into what is the version of hardware we can deploy when we install a virtual machine on ESX version 7. Okay, and then we'll look into VMware tools if we have time, but I don't think we can cover it today. But that's a topic for another time, I guess, obviously another session, but we'll definitely look into that as well. It basically enhances the performance of the virtual machine, so it's a really good software to be to have on the virtual machines, and it's, I think, I would say it's mandatory to install VMware tools. So here's a little bit of reference from VMware website, and we are looking into the files. So as I said, when you create a virtual machine, it creates a lot of files. So we basically say, for example, we create a VM name virtual machine, and then the VM name is the name of the VM. .vmx is the virtual machine configuration file. Now this is a very important file. If you accidentally remove your virtual machine from the vCenter, you can browse to the storage and find that virtual machine folder. Again, you can get the idea, right? Virtual machines are running as files, so they basically are stored within a folder. A folder is basically to collect all the files and keep it together. That's common practice, right? So when you create a virtual machine, what VMware does is creates a folder for the virtual machine first, and then put all the files relevant to it within that um, folder. So there are exceptions. We will look into it later on, where you can store the disk in different locations, but they will still be having the same folder name as the virtual machine. But okay, let's discuss on what else we have here. Additional virtual machine config files is VMXF, and this is a flat file which is also called the virtual disk, which basically is also the flat file, which is VMDK. Essentially what that flat file means is sorry, the flat file is basically where all your data is, so all your operating system is installed. So you can see VMDK file is also the same one, and then it has a pointer which has flat.vmdk, which basically has the data. So VM disk characteristics, so what type of characteristic it has is stored on VMDK, but VMDK VM name hyphen flat is where the machine data is, like how your operating system is installed. So hope you understand the difference. Let me go through that again. So vmdk is the virtual disk characteristic. So it can define, like, this is the OS which is running this, this is a VM which is running this OS, or this is the size of the disk, this is how it is provisioned, thick, thin, those sort of data. And then the actual operating system, which is literally, this is like your hard drive. So but because it is virtual, it is your virtual hard drive. Does it make sense? Yeah. So that is your hard drive, and it is basically called VM name hyphen flat file, flat.vmdk. So that is why it's virtual machine disk file. Now the next thing is vmname.vms. Sorry, we forgot NVRAM. This is the virtual BIOS or FE configuration. Now don't get confused with the RAM word. This is the BIOS file for the VM. Okay, and then the next file is the virtual machine snapshot file. It describes which is your actual disk and where are you at any level. Now snapshot is a topic which we have not been introduced yet, but you will pick up this terminology very quickly. Snapshot is like a point in time restore. So you can take a snapshot, if you're doing a change on the server, you can quickly take a snapshot, which basically creates a new vmdk file for you, and all the changes which we are doing will be created in a flat file. Instead of having this flat file, it will create flat.0001. so this file is intact, and all the data here is intact, and all the changes you are doing is created, or it's actually done on a brand new file. Does it make sense? Yeah. And then what happens after that is, so this file is safe and it is not touched, and basically we get another file created when you take a snapshot, and all the data is written on this file. If this data is, if the change whatever you're doing is unsuccessful, you can revert the change. That means obviously you'll go back to this one, and then all your configuration, everything which was done before, will be available here, and it will be the good configuration. And this, if it is the wrong configuration, you can just go back and revert. Similarly, if you think the changes which you have made is correct, and you are happy with that, then what we can do is you can basically say, okay, these changes which I have done is okay and I want to keep that, and that changes can be accepted by the virtual machine if you consolidate the disk and then delete the snapshot. We'll look at it in a detail when we cover snapshots, don't worry about that. Now, next one we have is the swap file, which is also in Linux, as you know. Instead of virtual memory, they call it swap files. So it creates a swap file for each VM, and that is only used if your virtual machine is running out of the physical RAM which you have given to it. Well, in this scenario, virtual RAM or VRAM which you have given to it, and then it starts swapping after that. It has a lot of other memory management techniques which we'll look into when we cover memory management techniques in the coming sessions. For now, obviously these are the important files. Then we have virtual machine suspended file, which basically means you have a running virtual machine, you can suspend it. That means everything which is running will be, you know, stored on the disk, and it's beneficial when you basically are taking a dump or something, or trying to dump the memory into a file for, you know, troubleshooting or anything like that. Now the next one is current virtual machine log files, which basically are the log files, and where is the number. And the next one is virtual machine log file, where the number is starting with 1. So the old virtual machine log file will be basically having a lower number accordingly. So we covered most of it. This is a config file, this is a BIOS file, additional virtual machine configuration file, sorry, and this is the characteristics where it defines what the disk is, and this is a flat file where the OS runs. So that's the OS running on here, and this is basically the BIOS, the basic input output operations which you do. And then just quickly, the next one is the snapshot one, which I defined, which I explained to you over here. Okay, and then the virtual machine data file, which is also there. Again, swap file, as I explained, swap is similar to virtual memory. It is only going to be used when the virtual RAM is running out. Okay, that's pretty much it on this one, and then let's look into a quick demo on how to create a virtual machine. Okay, so I have logged into my vCenter server, which is vcsa.lab.agileops.co.uk, and we will right click on the ESX host. I have this ESX host, which is basically here running ESX03 agileops.co.uk. As you might have noticed, this is a brand new ESX host which I have recently built. It's a HP Z820 workstation, running obviously the latest version of ESX on here. It has 16 logical CPUs and basically 128 GB memory, and yeah, 20 gigahertz CPU, which is a lot. And also it has crazy amount of storage. So I have only provisioned 6 terabyte, but it has 12 terabyte storage on there. Yeah, cost me a bit, but yeah, the benefit is if you guys are struggling with setting up your own labs, I will try to help out those guys by giving you access to the lab. As you can see, this is quite beefy and very expensive to run. Not just expensive to buy, it's expensive to run as well. I have invested in this to help out others as well who are struggling to set up a lab at home. So we'll discuss about that at the end of the session. Let's get started with creating a new virtual machine. Right click on the ESX host like this, and then go create virtual machine, create a new virtual machine, click on next, and then the name of the machine I want to give is Win10 test, yeah, which will differentiate what it is from rest of them. I want to put it in, maybe we'll put it in discovered virtual machines for now. Click on next, and then next again. That's the ESX server where it is going to run, which is fine. And then the storage, which is this one, which is a local storage, but I'm happy with that. Now compatibility, this is the compatibility version. So this also depends on the hardware version, which I was talking about, the virtual hardware version. So ESX7 or later can be chosen, because this is ESX7 and I don't have any older versions running in my environment. And then we can click on next. We'll be installing Windows 10, so we have already got Windows selected. Just select Windows 10 here and then click on next. Now we can edit the now this, as I was saying, we can here we can define how much CPU and memory we want to give. So we can increase the CPU to 4, increase the memory to 6 GB, and then we can increase the hard drive to 50, and we can choose to have thin provision because it will be easier to provision, and also it will be a lot efficient to use if you are thin provisioning stuff. If you thick provision 50 gig, it will allocate 50 gig out of this 3.19 terabyte straight away. But if you use thin provisioning, it will as and when it is writing data, it will use it. So maybe if it is installed and it's only taking 3 gig, it will only use 3 gig out of your disk. And then as you're growing, patching, like growing the data by patching and copying data or applications there, it will grow accordingly, which is a really efficient way, and it's called thin provisioning your disk. Okay, let's click next, and we are pretty much ready, and this gives you a summary of how you have what you have created. This is the name, so there will be a folder created with Win10 test, and then obviously it is going in this folder, and then on disk data store over here, data store 01, remember that guys. Okay, and then it's having 4 virtual CPUs and 6 virtual gig virtual memory, 6 gig virtual memory. Click on finish, and you can see it is getting created. It's almost done. There you go, Win10 test. So that is our virtual machine created. For those of you who are watching me for the first time, just wanted to remind you that I have full tutorial on 6.7 vSphere 6.7 already. There's a playlist if you want to find out, and this sessions which we are doing is version 7. So feel free to subscribe, like, and share it with others guys. Okay, so we are going to quickly go and explore this. So this is our virtual machine. Basically we click on data stores, and then we can go inside the files, and then we can explore this particular data store, sorry, this particular virtual machine. So if we scroll down, that is our machine, which is in the folder as I explained in the session. The VMs are created like files, and they are stored within a folder. So now there is a quick difference and a quick information I want to give. The virtual machine is created, but it's only having 1, 2, 3, 4 files. This is because the virtual machine is not running. As soon as we power it on, we'll see a lot of new files being created, and it's automatically done when you power it on the log files and other files like the vmdk file, which we saw. Sorry, the vmdk file which we saw is here, and it's not having much data. This is the config file, which is VMX, and as soon as I click on VMX file, you can see this register VM gets highlighted. So if accidentally you remove it from the vCenter here, you can go back here and register it, but make sure if it is deleted, you can't get it back. If it is removed accidentally from the vCenter, you can get it back. So let's power on and see the difference of files which will be created after that. So let me go back here and then right click on it and power on. We might not be able to do the full installation of vCenter today. Sorry, the Windows. Did I power on the wrong one? I did. So I wanted to power on Windows 10 test. Right click and there you go, power on, and that should show us that it is booting now. And there you go. If we click on summary, we can see it is powered on from the console. Oh, there's a pop-up which got locked, I guess. There you go, you can see it powering on. Okay, so now let's quickly go back and just to discuss about those files which we were talking about earlier. Just need to give it some time to read all the files. There you go, at the bottom we have it here, and we should see more than 4 files at least once it is basically completed reading this. There you go, can you see that? So you got the log file created, and we got another VMX file with the same name, and then we have the log file, the vswap file which I told you, which is the swap file for this. Now because we have not reserved the memory, vswap file is the file which basically allocates 6 GB memory here, and then that will be used for the virtual machine by the virtual machine. And then if there is a difference, if you reserve the memory, we didn't reserve the memory now, if we reserve the memory, this swap file will not be created. So we'll look into that later as well. But this is how you create a virtual machine, and now you're ready to install the ESX, and in the next session we'll do that for you guys. So let's quickly go back to the presentation, and these are the references, guys, and I do want to highlight that I have full tutorial of vSphere beginners. In the detailed agenda of the course which we are running here is over here. The references for the log files or for the VM itself which I have is from this location. This is the reference, and don't forget to check out my blog. Now if you are really struggling with creating your own lab at home and you do not have any resources to do it at all, what I would suggest you guys is to log into my blog, and there is a section which I have created for people especially who are struggling with labs. So you can check that out, and if you're interested in hiring a lab directly which is fully functional, you don't need to waste any time installing it and troubleshooting it. A lot of people contacted me, have mentioned that they tried to install vCenter so many times and it failed, and it's failing most of the time because these guys who are really trying to do that, they don't have enough resources on the VMs, sorry, resources on their physical machines. So bare minimum you will need a good resource on your machine. So online labs for VMware vSphere 7, this is the post which I have done, and this is how you will access it. So you'll be using my infrastructure. You'll be using your laptop or your desktop. You'll connect to me directly on my infrastructure. You'll have an account set up on my infrastructure, and then you'll directly be able to access my vCenter server, and then you will get 2 ESX host ready built for you, or you can choose to build it yourself, how I have shown it on the module 2, how to create a virtual ESX server. It's up to you how you want to do it. You just need to reach out to me at Ibrahim at agileops.co.uk, and obviously I have provision storage as well, so you can do everything what we are doing and practice creating virtual machines and everything. So read this article. This is the minimum requirement you need to have your lab running. 12 gig for this vCenter server, 4 gig at least for one ESX host, and the second one because you need at least two to try out cool features like HA, DRS and all that. So, and then you also need shared storage and AD, DNS for authentication, and DNS for, you know, making sure it is resolving to the right vCenter name and all that. And I have also got shared storage here mentioned. So all of that you'll get when you basically get one of my labs. You don't need to worry about troubleshooting, and you know, if you don't have enough hardware, you don't need to worry about it. So if you check out this, I will put the link or in the description below about this blog post. All the details on how to, you know, get the lab, which one you want to get, is mentioned here. So it's a ready to use 1 day lab, or ready to use 1 week lab, or even you can go for ready to use 1 month lab. You can have either ready to use or build it yourself. So there are two options in everything, and if you're a 6 core person, you want to try out some emulators, I'm also giving you that. So the only reason I'm charging is this infrastructure is costing me a lot of money, which I have set up, especially the daily running of the electricity charges and the internet charges. It's very low price when you compare to what I have actually spent for this. And the benefit you're getting is ready to use lab, which you will be having available uh, whenever you need, 24/7, to access and practice on your own space, on your own pace. Okay, so that's about it, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the session today, and if you do really need any help in setting up your own home lab, you can still reach out to me. I have helped so many people setting up their home labs, but if you really don't have enough memory to set it up, then there's not a lot of I can do. This is the best I can do to offer you something from my side, if you're interested to learn. And that's about it. Thanks for watching, and question of the day today. Okay, what is the best way to authenticate VCSA? Tell me. I haven't covered that today, but I have covered it in the past. Let me ask you another question related to today's session. What is the file which is responsible for the memory? The memory. It is a tricky one, um, and it is basically uh, the file which is responsible for basically the swap as well. So just that's a hint over there for you guys. Okay, so don't forget to subscribe, check out my blog, agileops.co.uk, and if you have any questions, you can reach out to me at Ibrahim Quraishi, or send a direct message and say hello. Like if you like this video, and hit the notification bell for new updates. Enjoy watching and keep sharing. Cheers, bye.